Welcome to the Goat's Gravy, the ultimate podcast tailored for young professionals navigating the dynamic world of sales and sales leadership. We are here to serve up a blend of mentorship and advice. In each episode, we dive deep into conversations with accomplished leaders and rising stars in the sales industry. Together, we explore their triumphs, challenges, and invaluable experiences. Our goal? To distill their insights into practical lessons that can seamlessly integrate into your own career journey. So whether you're a seasoned sales expert or just starting out, join us as we ladle out wisdom and inspiration, empowering you to excel in the ever-evolving landscape of sales. Onward we go. All right, welcome back to another episode of The Goat's Gravy. It's season 2, and we have a spectacular guest today. In fact, it's our second chief executive officer to our podcast. Scotty, pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
He was raised in the great state of Michigan, and he spent his first year at junior college before going to Western Michigan University to study industrial engineering. He was the first member of his family to graduate college, which is very cool. And that's where he met his incredible wife of 24 years, Miss Jen.
Jenny!
He received his MBA in Finance and Strategic Management from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business.
Ooh, smart guy.
Very impressive. That's a mouthful.
Smart guy.
And most of his career has been focused on operations, logistics, continuous improvement, and supply chain management roles in diverse industries such as food, cement, building products, and large events. He wore many hats, including industrial engineer, project engineer, operations manager, director of distribution, VP of supply chain. Man, he's accelerated quickly. Chief operating officer, and currently he is the president and chief executive officer at In Production, the premier provider of temporary seating and structures for live events in North America, which is a really cool company. They build some of the most iconic events in the country, such as the Waste Management Phoenix Open, the Masters, Lollapalooza, Chicago NASCAR Street Race, several pieces of the Las Vegas F1 race series, and his company most recently this year built a temporary lakefront football stadium for Northwestern University. Really cool. So when he's not running companies, he spends a lot of time mentoring high school and college students, and he's on the curriculum advisory board for the Western Michigan University College of Engineering. And most importantly, he loves nothing more than spending time with his wife and 3 rock star children, one of which is at University of Iowa, quite the future salesman.
Absolutely.
He'll be coming on our podcast shortly. So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Jason Tedrow.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for the invite. Happy to be here. Exciting.
Excited to have you.
This is great.
It's awesome.
And this is like legit. This is an awesome setup.
Legit. We have moved from 7 listeners to 10, so we're moving up.
I may have been 2 of those, so. But I'm in.
Well, we want to get some feedback from you at some point.
So, Jason, pumped to have you, but my man, pumped to have you in studio, too. Like, this is a treat for us. A lot of our guests come in via Zoom, so this is great to have you in studio. So to kind of kick us off, really cool career, very interesting, weaving around many different business units. And now you're in the C-suite. That's where Billy ultimately wants to get to, but he just can't do it. So we'll see how that goes. But could you take us through that evolution?
Sure. Coming out of college, actually, let me back up for a second. When I went to junior college, I had no idea what I wanted to do, right? So, we kind of grew up very working class background, and there wasn't really money for college, and I had a $1,200 scholarship, and first year was like, okay, well, that'll pay for junior college for a year. And I was sitting outside the door of the math professor's office. He had taken a newspaper clipping and put it on the door, and it was the top 10 paying jobs right out of college. And number 2 was industrial engineer. I said, well, nice. And I had friends at Western Michigan. They had a spot in their apartment the next year. Went up, met the guys that organized the IE program. Loved them. Fantastic people. And, I kind of always wanted to get into business, but I was, I had a friend in schools like, hey, you can't go wrong with math and science. So, start there. And then if you don't like it, you go do something else. So I went into engineering. Fast forward, graduate and started. My first few jobs were kind of in, solving problems, making things better, fixing things. We started out in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and actually moved to Chicago with Jen's job. We moved to downtown Chicago, and I took a job with a company, Conagra Foods. I was a corporate engineer. I was traveling around doing projects, and really just kept getting other opportunities. Just it was one of those like do well here, and then you get other opportunities. There's a lot of serendipity. It was a lot of like, I was very fortunate to have a couple mentors that kind of grabbed me along the way and said, hey, come here. Right.
Yeah.
So there was one guy, Tom Dalgleish, who was he was a University of Chicago grad, Michigan State guy from Michigan, kind of took it upon himself to help me out a little bit. So I'd had a couple stretch roles, like doing things I had no business doing, right? Like mid-20s, I was building, $30 million food plants, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. And like, I'm on site, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I'm on site. I've got, hundreds of vendors on site. Just their only goal in life is to take more money out of my pocket and change orders. It was just awful. But, you get through things like that and you realize, hey, I can, stretch myself and do a little bit more. So Tom pulled me aside one day and he said, hey, I see the kind of career that you want to have. You've never managed people. You should manage people. Come take over the supply chain group. And so that kind of pivoted my career a little bit there. And then I went back to grad school. And then I think that was really the pivot point of, those two things happening kind of in quick succession of, getting into a position where I'm managing people, I'm in a different function, and then going back and getting my MBA at a school that's, really well known. That really opened a ton of doors for me, right? I started getting a lot more calls for roles I never was called about, but all of a sudden you pop a few of those things on LinkedIn. It's like, you never get called for a director job until you have your first one. And you never get called for a VP job until you have your first one. And so for me, it was kind of just a little bit of serendipity, kind of taking different roles, getting my advanced degree. And that really kind of put me in a position to like go do other things. So then, our oldest was born in Chicago and we realized, hey, we can't live in the city anymore. And so we moved back to Michigan. I took a different job. That put me on a different path in the cement industry. Again, it's kind of a similar thing. I did that for a couple of years running operations, and they said, hey, we'd love you to go and run our distribution group in Kansas City. So we had just had our second. Addie was born in Detroit. Then we moved to Kansas City. Connor was born. And then I got a call from a headhunter one day, Hydrick and Struggles, and it's a VP job at a private equity owned company that they're going to take it public in the frac sand space. So why not, right? So it's like, for me, it was, you get presented with these different opportunities, and like, there's a great Richard Branson quote. It's like, if someone offers you a great opportunity and you don't know how to do it, just say yes and figure it out. Like That was my whole life for my whole career for probably up until now, I mean, and so we moved to Chicago. Then I'm in I'm on the executive staff, private equity experience. We took a company public. It was really cool. Great experience. It was really just good for us. And then kind of pivoted that into a couple different roles. And then actually I was getting ready we were going to move to Dallas about 7 years ago. And I was going to take a job as CEO of a propane company, of all things, again, and I was sitting in the hotel lobby, getting ready to go into the boardroom to go meet with the board and to accept the job. And I got a random call and I picked it up. I never picked those calls up, and I pick it up. And it's a recruiter for the job, running operations at my current company. And I'm like, hey, this sounds great. We don't have to move. I don't have to basically get a 1-bedroom apartment in Dallas, which probably would have been what I had to do. And then, you just kept just getting other opportunities. And, so I came as VP of Ops, then Chief Operating Officer, and now CEO. And we just did a successful exit on the business last year. So it's a really long-winded answer just to say, look, it wasn't a linear path. It was very, turns and twists along the way. I picked up mentors along the way that helped me, that gave me opportunities, that guided me, that gave me advice. And so that's why I really, I love that you guys are so passionate about it too, is I love to try to help people too early in their career, because there's no chance I'd be anywhere close to where I am today without people kind of dragging me along and being very, candid and blunt and helping me.
I would love to go all the way back for a second, because you were the first to graduate college.
Yep.
Was it just natural, and were you a great student? You just always knew you were going to go to school? Was that the motivating fact because no one else had done it in your family? Or just give us a little bit more about that. And then I'd love to understand from you, what has really fueled you to want to be successful in everything you've done? Because clearly you have been.
I love that question. So I guess going all the way back. So I was always a good student in high school. I went to a very small school, Michigan Center, Michigan, go Cardinals. Very small school. I think we graduated like 70 people, which actually is pretty neat because Jen graduated from a small school as well. So we kind of have that perspective in common. But so it's wild to me to think like, our kids are graduating with 800-900 kids. But I was always going to go to college. And actually, I'll never forget, it was my senior year of high school. We went to like, my parents were great, love them. But, we go to like one of those college, information nights. And we're walking around and looking at all these different schools. And we're kind of getting in the car afterwards. It's like, there's no plan for you to where there's no money here for you to go to college, right? So you take your scholarship and you'll figure it out. So for me, it was like, there was a certain life that I wanted to have, right? I wanted to, I was kind of laugh, like, there's people always say, like, always be thankful for what you have. And, like, I remember, like, when I was younger, like, the one thing I wanted more than anything was a house with stairs and maybe an ice maker. Like, that was like, so I wanted to have a different life. I wanted to, I love my hometown. I love going back, but I kind of, I just wanted a different life. So to me, that was, I'm going to go to college. We're going to figure it out. I got some loans. I paid my way through, and, it was never a question, right? I do remember, like my junior year of college, I was bartending at a golf course, which is the best job I've ever had and never will have. And one of the members asked me if I wanted to be a sales rep working for him. I'll never forget. It was $26,000 a year plus a car. And I really thought about it. I'm like, that sounds pretty good. It's 1990, 495. I'm like, I can make this work. This seems like a pretty cool gig. And I remember I had some friends like, maybe not. When did you go and finish college? And then you can always go back and be I don't remember what he sold. But so no, for me, I was always going to go to school. I was always going to kind of, I always kind of had the, like, it's always better to leave and come back than never leave. Was kind of my perspective. And I just left and never came back.
Yeah. Well, I love how you basically are self-made, but really none of us are self-made, right? Because you said it. You've had mentors pull you along. If you can think back maybe early on, was there one or two individuals that really stood out as people that gave you guidance? Did you seek out that guidance? Or did someone just grab you and say, hey, I like this person. I really want to help them out?
Yeah, I would say, so my second job, so my first job was a plant engineer. It was fine. Like, that was a great experience. I got the experience I needed to have right out of college. My second job at Conagra Foods, we had a really strong operations team. Dwayne Hughes was a Naperville guy. Rich Callahan, I think, is still in Naperville. These are guys that, and the president, Rich Scalise, who's a Naperville guy. These are guys that took me under their wing early. And I'll never forget the first year as a project engineer. And, it was the end of year was always a big deal for us, because, like, you didn't get to roll your CapEx forward, and, like, we had certain money to spend. We were going to spend it. And I remember, like, that week between Christmas and New Year's, I'm writing POs. I'm, like, getting stuff out the door, just grinding. We had a great year, and we got all the money spent. And that's, like, second week of January, Rich Scalise, the president of the division, calls me in his office and hands me a $5,000 check. He said, don't tell anybody about this, but you did a great job.
You hit it, man.
Wow. That $5,000 bonus I've got goosebumps right now. I'm thinking about it, meant more to me. And if any of us got a $5,000 bonus right now, we'd jump off the roof, right? But that meant more to me at that time. I was probably making $75,000 a year or something like that. It was incredible. So those guys took me under the wing and really, they brought me into the fold. Like, they showed me the model. They take me on the plane with them. We'd fly around to different plants. And, like, they my whole career is predicated on, I have an operating model that I run my departments and my division and my company by, and I just copy and paste it everywhere we go. We all kind of have that, right? It's 85% of it.
But why did they do that? Obviously, they saw something in you. So maybe talk about how you differentiated yourself from other people, or what did you do to stand out?
Yeah, it feels a little cliche, right? But it's all, I always tell, like, young, like, just do the little things right, work hard, come in early, stay late. The answer is always yes, right? Like, don't make excuses, just figure it out, right? Even like now, like, with a silly thing, like one of my board members the other day was like, hey, can you get me into this whatever? And I had no idea how to do it. It's like, yes, I'll figure it out, right? And, like, it's the same mentality, like, yes, I will figure it out, and we figured it out, right? So it's getting things done. I think, you just put your head down, be fun to work with, be fun to be at the airport with, get the work done. Don't cause drama, do the right things.
Yeah. I like what you said about the little things, Jason. And that seems to be a recurring theme of a lot of our guests coming in talking about that. But transitioning into sales for 2 seconds, a lot of our listeners are younger in career. They're considering sales. That's why we love your background, right? Because you're kind of on the flip side of it. So as salespeople have approached you you mentioned cutting POs, that got me goosebumps.
I love that.
Right, Billy?
It's the end of the year. That's right.
But can you talk to maybe some of the experiences that you've had with salespeople that have really impressed you? Maybe how do they get to you? And when they're there, what are some of the traits that you appreciate on what they ask or how they kind of go about their business?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that any vendor, salesperson, anything, like, you just have to show that you have value to add, and don't sell me. I never want to feel like I'm getting sold. If I get a form email and it reads like a form email and it's like automatic junk block, delete, right? So to me, I want you to I want to feel like you understand my business or you've made an attempt to. I'd like something instead of saying, may I help you with your structures? I'd like something like, hey, I saw your post on LinkedIn on Vegas F1. That was amazing. I've always wanted to go. I'm a big such and such fan. I think we have common ground. We can help them both. Like that's the kind of thing that I need. I need a connection. Yeah. I need a reason to talk. Like actually the best way, to get to me is like through somebody I know. Yeah. Right. Like, if I got,
we've just talked about networking and how important that is. Yeah.
Like I will very rarely will I take a cold call. Like I just won't do it. So to me, it's something through LinkedIn, or if I go to a trade show, that's probably the best way. Like I see something that looks interesting to me. Okay, now let's talk. Like I think you can add value, right? We do a lot with professional services, like continuous improvement folks, or pricing studies, or marketing studies, things like that. I need to feel like you've taken the time to understand my business. Like, and if like,
it's a great soundbite.
Oh, yep. I had a continuous improvement guy in a month ago, and it was so clear that they had their 12-page standard deck with their 12 standard recommendations that didn't apply to my business.
No customization at all.
You pick it apart in 8 minutes, and it's like, now you're wasting my time. I'll never work with these guys again. But just it's like, hey, here's an example. Hey, I looked and, here's how I can help you. Now I'm interested.
Yeah. Are there people that you feel have gone above and beyond that you'd say aren't really vendor relationships? They truly become partnerships, and how is that manifested?
I love that. So I think some of my closest relationships are with vendors or suppliers or people that, you've kind of gone into it with and solved a really hard problem together. Or like, I had an engineering firm when I was a project engineer. This is early in my career, and they were my go-to. Like they just fixed my problems. Like I wasn't smart enough to know this needs to go together like this and like this and like this. I'd gotten to know them, through a recommendation from somebody else. And they owned my problem. They lived it. And it wasn't like hey, well, I need my 60% down before I'll leave it. Like it was, hey, we'll be on site tomorrow. We'll take care of it. Like that's a relationship, right? So I'm going to take care of you. You're going to take care of me. And, that's when you, especially like in the event space, like it's so high stress. It's all, so schedule driven. You can't miss. You have to bat 1,000 on every project, right? If you show up at the Masters with your Thursday tickets and we say, sorry, we're not ready yet. We'll catch you next week. Can you reschedule? It's bad. It's bad. So having people who can help you you'll have my loyalty forever.
Yeah. Now you've had salespeople report to you. Mm-hmm. You've had sales teams report to you in the past, sales leaders. Do you get involved in the interview process, or what has been your level of involvement over time? And then what are you looking for? Who stood out to you looking to get a job? Because a lot of our listeners and viewers out there, they're trying to find that next gig. They may be networked in, they may not, but you've got a lot of experience in assessing people. Mm-hmm. What do you look for?
So I think one of my favorite business books is Lencioni's, The Ideal Team Player, right? And it says the ideal team player is humble, hungry, and smart. Mm-hmm. And that is the framework for every hire I make, it's part of every review I do with people. It's like, are you humble, hungry, and smart, right? I was interviewing for a sales guy 2 months ago, and the guy comes in, clearly very talented, very qualified, looked the part, came in, didn't bring anything with him, sat his keys, phone, and wallet on my desk. I'd gotten him a glass of water.
Very relaxed.
He sat there, literally sat back.
Feet are kicked up.
Yeah, what do you want to know kind of thing. And then when he left the cup of water sitting on my, always do the token, like, hey, where do you want me to put this? Like, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it.
Right.
Right. But like, just like everything, like very qualified guy, not part of my culture. We're not doing that. Yeah. I can't have people like that.
Really hungry, humble, and smart.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's really good. It's a great book, by the way.
It's wonderful. Yeah. Highly recommend.
I'll get it for you for Christmas.
That'd be nice for you if you get me something.
For a change. Mm-hmm. So I think interviewing, you look for someone who's going to be a good culture fit, someone our customers can relate to. I think one of the hardest things so when I started running, having sales teams report to me and like, tech team, like, as CEO, I kind of have everybody in every department at some level kind of reports up to you. And a lot of things I don't know, like, I don't know anything about IT, but I have, I've been running the IT group. I handed that off to somebody a couple months ago, but like, I don't know anything about IT, but you have to be able to know what question to ask. And, okay, I know nothing about a remote Azure server, but I just butchered some. There's some IT guy out there who's just cringing right now.
Not listening to this podcast.
Like, and it's like, but I need to be able to say, well, okay, what's our alternative? Okay, what are the other three things you looked at? Like, just kind of like a decision-making matrix you go down. So it's like, for me, it's kind of similar with sales. It's like, what are other alternatives? Who's our competition? What would happen if we raised our price 5%? What would happen if we dropped to 5%? Like, what's the risk to us? Is this, so what I look for in people, it's the same with everything: humble, hungry, and smart. And running the sales team, I think it's a blast because I love talking to clients. I love doing those BD calls with the team and selling the business. Like that's my favorite thing to do.
That's what I was going to say is, as the CEO, right, you become kind of the lead seller, right? You're representing your brand, everything. Everyone's watching you. How you show up really matters, but not every CEO is involved, right, at the customer level consistently. But you seem to be. And so how has that benefited your company as you've grown? Are you specifically trying to reach out to kind of your top 10 customers, or what's your kind of mode of operation?
Yeah, I'd say it's a couple of different things. One is so I sold the company last year from one private equity firm to another.
That's why he's buying us dinner tonight.
I hope so.
It's on me. It's on me.
Nice. Maybe pizza, Billy?
Yeah, pizza. I love pizza.
Well, I'm buying apps. I mean, slow down, guys. I'm not sure how Q4 is going to turn out yet. The new guys, ZMC, great partners, much bigger firm out of New York. They're really well networked and well connected in the live entertainment, sports, different leagues, different owners. I mean, very well networked. So I've had, in the last 12 months, I've had my board meetings Tuesday. So I just had the stat. I have 97 different BD calls with their referrals since last August.
Wow.
So,
that's awesome.
I'm sitting there and we're pitching to like senior level folks at, very high profile, live sports entertainment, team ownership, their staff. So it's, I love that part, right? Because, I'm selling the company and then just trying to like, and there is no like real like tangible ask, like I'm going to build X, Y, and Z. It's more like, what do you do?
Sure.
And so I think it's fun that then I can kind of say, here's a lot of stuff we can do. And then they say, oh, you know what? You should talk to this guy. He's part of this. And then I connect it with my sales guys and then they kind of go off and actually do the real work. But
is this something that's naturally come to you, or have you had to kind of slow down and say, all right, I need to dial in a little bit and perfect my craft as I'm going to go out and start doing something I'm not super comfortable doing?
Yeah, I think I'm, fairly well with, dealing with, with people and
very
kind
outgoing.
And I think so. I really enjoy that part. So I like it a lot. There's nothing more important in my business and my number one job other than making sure people are safe and that they feel like they have they've got a good career and that we're a safe company and stable, and is making sure that we're growing the business. Like, that's the other part of, when you have someone puts a lot of money into you, it's like, well, every year should be a record year. Right. So my most important thing to do is continue to grow top line and bottom line. And I'm very fortunate that my staff, my head of ops, my head of tech, my BD guys, they're amazing. Right. So I can focus on doing more of the fun stuff and kind of have pulled back out of the weeds. When I first started, it was kind of a turnaround back in 18, and so I was really focused on, shoring up the operations, shoring up the team. Like it was a very functional, like, turnaround kind of a role. And then as I kind of, elevated over a couple of years, now I'm more into like, growing the business and like there's people that are running it.
Yeah.
So
maybe on because this is a topic for sales teams all the time, is what executives, I work for a big tech company and our CEO is very sales centric. And he loves, much like yourself, he loves being at the table, talking about the vision of the company, talking about what that partnership could look like. It's not necessarily selling them something, it's how both sides can benefit.
Yes.
So what advice would you give kind of our listeners as they're part of a sales team and they're a sales rep? How do they go about networking up to the C-suite? What's the effective way to do that? And you've got to have maybe some situations where you're saying no, or like I can't do that. Maybe the deal's too small,
right?
Or the opportunity is too small. Any advice for our listeners on how to go about creating that partnership internally so you can maximize externally?
So I think too often the mistake that people make, they're too focused on like what's in it for them, right? Like, and this seems very cliche and very remedial, but like, you have to show me what's in it for me. Like,
for sure.
You have to understand my business. You have to show me what you're going to do that's going to help me and make my day better and make things easier for me and my clients and save me money and make me money. Right. So if you can do that, and the best ones that walk in the room and can kind of command that space and say, look, I've seen this 100 times. I know exactly what we need to do here. Or Or, yeah, your business is nuanced and different. I don't know exactly what this is, but I've done something like this before. Would that work? So to me, it's demonstrating value, showing that you're going to get stuff done, and that you're going to, and the follow up. Like, I can't count the number of times where I've had someone come in my office like, oh, that sounds pretty good. Tell me more about that. Give me A, B, and C. It's 3 weeks go by, no follow up. It's like, come on, how hard is it to get the call? And then you don't, like, it's like you get it to the one. It's like, it's like the lines. It's 4th and inches. Why are we hitting it off 5 yards back? Like, it's quarterback sneak. So, but anyway.
Not this year. You guys are doing all right this year.
That's true.
I think D had a question on the innovation side. D?
I was thinking that. Yeah, I think really it's first and foremost cool to know you started in a technical role. I'm sure there's a lot of individuals that could see themselves in a leadership role, but they just want to get some reps under their belt. But I guess at the stage you're at now, which you have you're leading a larger company, what principles are you bringing to the table to drive growth, even when there's obviously revenue coming through the door every month, every day? So what's kind of guiding you behind the scenes?
Yeah, I would say it's 3 things. One is we want to do like the best jobs, right? We FIFA's coming in, you got the Olympics coming in, you got 2 Olympics coming in, and we want to do the best work with the best clients. Like that's huge. Like if you get involved with a bad client, there's bad clients. You guys have bad clients, I'm sure, or had. It chews up the business. It just eats away at people. It's just a bad experience for everyone. So what's driving me is, definitely what's driving me is, we've got some pretty high expectations from our new owners, justifiably so. But, we want to do the best work, and there's a lot of cool stuff out there. We got great momentum. Some of the stuff like the Northwestern Stadium, we got, that was such a great project, and it's really opened a lot of eyes. Like I'm speaking this week at the Intercollegiate Athletic conference for the Sports Business Journal, and we're talking about, hey, how can we use, temporary seating and staging to, enhance revenue at your business to support NIL investments, things like that. So to me, it's we want to do just the best projects. We want to work with, great clients. And the other thing is there's just there's so many like unique ways to use what we do to help somebody. So for example, you got these older aging college football stadiums. We went into Florida State. They took 7,500 seats out of one section, and they couldn't get them rebuilt in time for the season. So we put up temporary seats. Season ends, we take our stuff down. They'll take the rest. So it's just really innovative stuff. So I like really like doing new cool stuff and different unique ways to help people. Like, or even things like Field of Dreams. Like we build a baseball stadium in a cornfield. Like I think we're all motivated, but we're all geeks about this stuff too, right? So
we had some obviously pretty interesting roles leading up to the CEO role. Was there one role that really kind of set you up for this CEO gig, or would you say it was just a culmination of all the different experiences that kind of prepared you for this, or is there additional things you've had to do to kind of take the lead role?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a culmination. Right? I think I rely back on things I've done throughout my career constantly, but I would say the biggest one was when I pivoted and got my first VP role, my first time working with private equity, taking a small private company public as a part of the management team, being in the room, there's 10 of us running this company. And what was really cool about that experience is I think at the time, like 4 or 5 of us were under 40. And it was just a fun environment. Oil prices were going up. Fracking was hot. We were building this company, take it public, stocks go. Like that was really cool. But like, what was wild about that is like, it really, like I had to build a department. Like I was brought in to build the department. And then we grew and we kind of, we changed how the whole industry handled like distribution of material and getting too geeky about it, but we did all that stuff. And then the industry slowed down, and then it was unwinding everything. So in the span of about 4 years, private equity on the management team took a company public, built this massive, engine, and then had to throttle it all back. Like, I mean, I had, 15 years of a career in those, 4+ years. Right. So to me, I think that set me up the best, both from, because I'm on my 3rd private equity firm. I love the PE space. And then being on a management team and seeing how seasoned executives, the rest of the guys were very seasoned, like seeing how they run their business and how they operate was very helpful for me as a, late 30s, that was great.
Just taking a quick step back. One of the things you talked about was education. Really cool story. Your story is very similar to mine. But I chose, some of our listeners, and I talk, Billy and I talk to a lot of folks that are younger in career, and they're talking about getting their MBA right out of the gates. And I've always pushed back against that and say, how do you do an MBA without bringing practical experience to the table? That's just my view. And I could be wrong in some cases. But can you walk our listeners through how they should think about an advanced degree? And you got really excited when you said, when you got the advanced degree from a great school, that opened up different doors, which is really interesting. But how may they start thinking about, an advanced degree early versus waiting? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in waiting, honestly. If it's a technical degree, you could talk me into like getting it right away. There's a lot of these programs where in 6 years I can get my master's in engineering. Like, okay, that's, I could get with that. The thing that I took a lot away from my master's is it was all group work. And you had 20 classes. It was over almost 3 years. It was all group work, and you learn as much from your group mates as your professors and the materials and everything like that. So if you haven't worked anywhere, you maybe had a couple internships. What are you offering your classmates, right? So, I graduated undergrad in 97. I started grad school fall of 03, graduated in spring of 06. So I was only out, 5-6 years. If I went and went back to grad school right now and waited this long, I would get a totally different education. I would get so much more out of it, much more. Yeah. But I'm a big believer in waiting. Like, again, what value do you have to offer the rest of the class as someone with no perspective? And we had kind of full-time students mixed in with our we were on the weekend program. Actually, Jen and I went through it together. So we were on the Saturday program, and you could just spot, like, just so conceptual, and it's so, quoting the latest business book, and it was just, their whole life was, case studies, and it just, I'm a big believer in waiting. Just have something to add, to your perspective and add to the class.
Makes sense.
So talk a little bit about mindset. Obviously, as a CEO, there's a lot of pressure. You're responsible for everything. What do you do to keep yourself sharp and in a good headspace? And then how does that translate into, or I should say, kind of transcend down into the organization and impact your employees?
Oh, I love that. I think one of the things that I've probably changed and evolved the most just personally is, like, I've just calmed down, right? So when I was, it's like the old adage, like, don't get louder, just improve your argument kind of thing. Like when I was, I love that. When I was early, when I was early in my career, like, you find yourself in a position where, like, I just don't have the tools to deal with this. So what do? You just get louder, and, like, vendor comes to you and says, this wasn't in your scope. Oh, this is ridiculous. That's not adding any value, right? So I think I've calmed down. I hope if my team's listening to this, they agree with this, but, so you're setting the tone for the business. Even, like, I think about, like, mentorship. There's like micro mentorship where, like, I remember I had a boss, Mike Winkler. He was great. And his big thing to me was, like, slow down. You're walking too fast. You're talking too fast. You're making people nervous, right? So you're walking through the office and you're frittering around. Yep. It's like, you got to
just settle down.
You got to slow down. So
the knees bouncing. I had a boss that used to literally put his hand on my knee and be like, just
settle down.
Settle down. It's a big call.
And so to me, it's you're setting the tone right now. Actually, I just heard the Simon Sinek quote the other day was talking about insincere positivity, and being overly positive is a negative to the business because it seems insincere, right? People are like, hey, it's like that meme with the the dog sitting at the table and the room's on fire and like everything's fine. So I don't look at it as positivity. I look at it as calm, right? So when there's a crisis, when there's an issue, when there's an opportunity, when something doesn't go our way, it's like, okay, let's work the problem. So to me, I think the biggest thing for me is just, I think I've gotten a lot calmer as I've gotten older, as I've gotten more experience. I think the other thing is just, you have to take care of yourself, right? Like, I'm a worse manager, employee, boss, parent, spouse when I'm 20 pounds overweight and not getting enough sleep and probably had too many, drinks on the road. And, like, I'm not effective for anybody. So really sticking, finding your routine that works for you. I get up at 5 every morning, work out, listen to CNBC. By 6:15, I've got my workout in, my first cup of coffee. I've solved the Wordle and the connections. I've got 4 wins already. I've got 4 wins on the day.
Did you make the bed?
No, Jen's still in it.
She's still in bed.
So,
over her?
that's just mean. But no, I think so. So it's you're setting the tone, and you're setting, the expectation, right? First or second guy in the office, and a lot of times the last guy to leave, and and I think a lot of times, like, there's people out there, a lot of younger folks will say, I don't want that. I want to have more balance. That's great. I love that. but don't get upset about the results you don't get from the work you don't put in, right? Tomlin says that. So if you want to have a 9 to 5 and work 40 hours, and great, but you're not going to have this, you're not going to have this career that I think you want to have.
But I think it's really good because everything you just said translates into the sales world. I think number one, being calm. It was definitely
our first goat.
Love it.
Yes.
They earned it.
Goat comment. I would just say, as sellers, right, and just being in this world, right, you're going to have ups and downs. It's just how it goes. But keeping yourself calm through the storm is really, really important. And I agree. I think early on for me, spastic in many ways, just want to get things done, trying to operate with a sense of urgency, but moving too quick sometimes, slowing down and really being prepared for every moment that's ahead of you, I think is a great takeaway. I also think kind of what you're saying is getting into a disciplined routine. For sellers, every day you have a different schedule. You have different things happening. Sometimes you're traveling, but getting yourself into, just a more specific routine, keeping you tight, making sure you're carving out time to prep for the day. And then some of those bigger meetings that you have, I think all of that is really important. And many people don't do it, right? We wing it. And if you're a seasoned person and you've done it a long time, it's not always going to work when you wing it. Even if you know your product really well, you said it, you've seen it. Customers sometimes see if you show up and you're not adding value, you don't know enough about their business, it's going to hurt. So I think it's really important that those are nuggets that you've got to apply in your everyday work, or else, you could just set yourself up for failure.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, they say, stress comes from ignoring the things you shouldn't be ignoring, right? I think it's Bezos' quote. Like if you're not putting the work in, if you're not, you don't take an hour or two on Sunday and get your week set up, you're going to have a really bad Monday.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like Selby. Guy works all Sunday, every day.
He's prepping
work.
I bet he carves out 4.5 hours to go do something on Friday.
I got a question. You mentioned your involvement with relationships with your biggest customers. You've got a lot of pressure on you to grow the business right now. And we talk on this podcast a lot about knowing your craft, knowing your pitch. Do you have a basic pitch and premise that changes over time as you go acquire new clients? Is that something that you practice? Or is that just something that, I tend to wing sales calls at times myself. I'm guilty of it. But I was just curious on your mindset as you go in and you've got this big opportunity in front of you. Is it something that you rehearse, or what diligence do you do to get ready for that next big call?
Oh, I love that. So we customize the messaging based on the end user and what's important to them. So we do a lot of music festivals, right? So what I talk to a music festival about is different than what I would talk to a IndyCar race or a golf tournament, right? So, but we try to figure out what's important going into it. So we have one festival in Austin, Texas, where it's landlocked. It's a really tough park to work in. It's an amazing event. And we have 12 days to build it and 6 days to get out, and that's it. So we're constrained. What we can do there is constrained by what can we get in and out, right? So our pitch to the client on growing that event was, hey, we found new ways to put our stuff together and take it apart, and we can do it faster. So instead of 2 levels, let's go to 3. We can get it done in the same amount of time. And it's kind of they took the leap of faith with us, and we did it. We crushed it, right? So we get more revenue, they get more revenue in same amount of time. So we crafted. If we would have went in with a different message of, oh, look at these new seats we have. Well, they don't care about that. They care about So really identifying that nuance, like what's important to you. When we sold the F1 structures for the Las Vegas race, what's important. They wanted capacity, high end, something unique, something different, great sight lines. So we worked with a partner overseas and came up with this amazing structure. Put these great renderings together, put it in front of them, and like 2 minutes into the meeting, the decision maker said, are you showing me the stuff on the page is what you can build? Like, yes, we can do it. We got the work.
Love it. Yeah. Wow. So Billy, it's like kind of translating into your world or my world. I heard speed there. So instead of the vanilla presentation, we're going to unpack speed and we're going to nail that because decision makers like yourself, like a lot of the folks that our teams deal with, they've got ADHD. And unless you can capture them right up front, by a couple bullets, hey, we're going to talk about speed today, and we're going to make an impact in these following ways. Like, you got to grab their attention quickly. And it sounds like you're prepped based on the problem, which I love, and that's going to change from company to company. But for the listeners out there, it's a couple bullets going in that you have to nail. based on homework.
Right.
Right. And being able to quickly articulate the value around that. That's what it's perfect. Sounds like, okay, beautiful.
Changing topics, you love to mentor and help high school kids, college kids. You have a son that's now a freshman at University of Iowa who we've been engaged with. Maybe walk through some of the things you're doing to give back and mentor others, and also what you get out of those relationships.
Oh, I love that. So there's a few different ways. One is I speak at a few of the business classes at NEQA. They do the VEI class, which is amazing. So Drew, it's like basically they set up a product and run a business, and that's a whole year class. And Drew had that class last year, and he was the CEO of the class. And so I went in and just talked to him about different things. And then they have a general business class. I think the last 3 or 4 years I've spoke at that one. And then I talk at a couple of college classes at Western, but and then I'm part of the formal mentor program there. So I've had new mentors. I get one every year, but then you always kind of keep the ones you had. And what's funny is, over their college career, they need different things every year, right? So, when I get someone who's a freshman, it's blocking and tackling, right? It's like, I'm talking like, okay, first thing I need you to do is connect with me on LinkedIn, and I want you to send me a meeting invite for 4:00. And the trick there is like, I know they're on a different time zone. Are they going to get that right?
I still screw that up.
Oh my goodness. So it's a lot of really basic stuff, right? Versus then, a couple years in, it's like how, any advice on how to interview for internships and how, and then, as they're graduating, it's, can you help me negotiate different roles? So I love, working through those problems with those guys. There's folks that aren't even part of my formal program, but I'm really close with all the administrators in the college, and they'll call, they'll give my name to one of the students, like, hey, this, she's having a problem with negotiating a deal and she's looking for some guidance or help. And so 2 years ago, I was one of the students called me, and, she wound up passing on the deal. We the next couple months, she was interviewing a different opportunity. She got this great job. Then she called me, a few weeks ago, and she's like, hey, do you have a minute? She was getting promotion opportunities. It was just awesome to be able to help people at different levels of their career, right? Because you can't teach perspective, right? So, but we've gone through how many mistakes have we made? It's like, it's nice to be able to help these kids. And what I think is fun, like some of the high school kids that I had talked to are now reaching out, like Drew's friends or other kids. And, Luke Elsie, pinged me the other day. He's like, hey, do you have any recommendations for books and podcasts? And I sent him, I keep a running list, and I sent it to him. And I love that stuff. But I had one kid reached out, and he overachiever in school, clear, all AP stuff. He's taken a very challenging program at a really big university, and he's encountering stress for the first time. And he just texted me. He's like, do you have a minute to talk? And all he wanted to talk about was, how do you manage stress? He had it was such a foreign concept to him because he'd been cakewalking through this stuff because he was so smart. And it was really like, so it was a totally different conversation. But, all these kids need different things. And if you can help, the other thing is I do this because, I like it. I get more out of it, I think, than they do. And I would want someone to, Drew's going to call you guys, and you guys are going to take the call, and you're going to help him, right?
Well,
it's just the right thing to do.
I'll take his call.
Okay.
He's one of my favorites, by the way. So I'll tell you this. I think the takeaway for the audience, though, is, don't sit and wait for something to happen, right? Go take action, go reach out to people. We talked about this. We did a networking episode. It's just so important to be proactive with these relationships, and starting with your parents or your parents' friends or whatever those relationships are, because there's so many people that are willing to help, especially if it's a warm introduction. And that's what it's been so fun watching your son, because he, right after he graduated, got his first sales job, came to our kitchen and pitched the family.
Thank you for that.
Your son did the same thing. Caden did it with Atwaters. And now he's at college. He's the president of the pledge class. And he's just taking on a lot of responsibility. But what I love is he's updating. He'll send a text just giving you updates.
Yeah.
He's listened to our podcast. He gave us feedback on some of the podcasts. I love that. Taking that proactive approach is really impressive to me, and not enough people are doing it. So I think that's a huge opportunity. If you're listening, just reach out, start networking, and find people to mentor you, because there's so many people that want to help you. Now that you're in this top chair, who are your go-tos? Do you have your own personal kind of advisory board? Who is continuing to mentor you? And is there any kind of key lesson that you've learned in this role versus some of the other roles?
So what I love is throughout your career, I think you just kind of collect these relationships. And what's interesting is you kind of need different people for different things. I think we talked about this the other day too, just so I don't forget, one thing I would just recommend to people is as you develop those relationships, don't let them just go stale and only reach out to somebody when you need something.
That's right.
It's so insincere. It's like, hey, I haven't heard from you in 15 years. What's going on? Well, I just lost my job and wonder if you could, fostering these relationships, it is like, think about like a garden, right? You're kind of growing these things. You have to tend to it. These relationships, you don't need to talk to somebody, monthly, but hey, you reach out, send a text, send an email. So I think what's interesting to me is, so I picked up people along the way, Tom Dalglish, I mentioned, actually it's an interesting story with Tom, great guy, incredibly intelligent. That one, he gave me my first opportunity, and then was a reference for me a few times. Actually, my favorite thing that anyone's ever said about me with Tom called when I went to in production, I needed a reference. So I was like, well, I had Tom, call Tom. And the recruiter calls and Tom said, listen, I only have a couple minutes. Here's what I'll tell you. Jason Tedrow is McKinsey smart and Midwest nice. And if you don't hire him, you're an idiot. That was it. I got to go. Click.
That's a solid reference.
That's a great recommendation.
So I think, and Tom, when I was going to work on the Tom. So he was my mentor for a long time. And then I was working with a PE firm that had another, portfolio business that needed a leader. I recommended Tom. He wound up getting 2 different jobs with the PE firm. Like, you kind of flip the relationship, right? My president I worked with at Lafarge Cement in Kansas City, Olivia Bebuck, brilliant guy. I was a reference for him 3 times, right? So, just how you kind of help each other along the way, and to me, it's like, yes, I have this group, and that I kind of call on when you need something. A lot of them are former bosses, former colleagues, friends, right? Like, how many times have we sat and had coffee and just worked through a problem together, right? And to me, that's there's certain relationships you can't have with your employees, or even I guess the other thing too, and is. I think the best advice I could give anybody is, the most important decision you're going to make in your life, and we've all done a really good job of this, is picking your spouse, right? Because it can make everything a lot easier and make everything a lot harder. I've got my wife is brilliant. She's an engineer, got her MBA, former consultant, turnaround.
She's a GOAT.
She's a GOAT. That's a GOAT.
You should have had her on first.
You should have. I mean, I'm the appetizer here, but like when I can come home and have a problem that I can work through with her, it's just such a, my friends that don't have that, it's just harder. Yeah. Right. So I have a network of folks, both the home, friends, former colleagues, and, depending on what the problem is, those are the people I reach out to. And because I always love that, my former boss that he retired and I took his seat as CEO, nobody knows me, my company, my customers, my product better than him. So I talk to John, weekly. Right. And he's definitely not one to, be soft on the messaging either.
Sure. Yeah.
He's like, I asked him something the other day, and he's like, well, you could do that. I wouldn't, but you could.
So as we kind of drum roll this thing out, and Demetri, that goat is just classic.
It's strong.
The goat noise.
I love that. I love that.
This is the goat's gravy, and your answer doesn't necessarily have to kind of culminate to a sales answer, because I think your messaging today is extremely applicable to both sales and operations and engineering. So I've really appreciated it. But as you kind of deliver kind of the goat's gravy, if you will, in a consolidated, fashion, if we're going to kind of bring it home, any bullet points that you'd share with our listeners that have really affected your career and really made an impact?
So the first business book I ever read was Jack Welch Winning, right? And that was prime GE, candor, fire the bottom 10%, and, right? But what I took away from that book was just the candid, direct, no nonsense, honest feedback. And I think that's helped me as a leader, as a friend, as a partner, as as a boss. Just being able to sit down with somebody and just have an honest conversation, because you've established trust, you've established credibility. If you're afraid to have those hard conversations, you're limiting the depth of that relationship. You're limiting your potential. So I think the thing that has helped me the most in my career is being able to establish strong relationships with clients, partners, staff, friends, and then be in a position where you can be honest. And I know it's such a, it's like mom and apple pie, right? Be honest, tell the truth, but there's so little, you don't see it very often, right? So
You want to be challenged sometimes in things you're
100%.
thinking and ideas you have, and sometimes people just go with it.
Well, the hardest thing is, as the higher you go in the business, the less truth you hear too. So anytime when I do my one-on-ones with people, it's like, hey, tell me, you got to tell me, what do I need to start doing, stop doing, and keep doing,
like that.
So I think that's part of it. Just, that's the thing that's helped me the most, is just be able to connect with people, establish real, honest relationships, find a way to add value, work hard, and the opportunities will come. People will want to help you. They'll want to help you if they like you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that relates to, Billy, I love the GOAT. I love the GOAT.
I got a GOAT tally here.
but as a salesperson, and you're coming in for mentorship as an example, or you're talking to a sales leader, if you can just be clear on the flip side to that individual, and you're delivering the message where this is really where I'm struggling, right? Because I think we all salespeople think they need to be on all the time about how well they're doing, about the deal they closed, and how great they are. When in reality, it's the flip side, that leaders like yourself are probably looking for that direct question of, man, I'm struggling with this. I think it's a weakness of mine. I need to get better. How can you help? And I think that's kind of the translation I just heard from
100%.
what you said.
Yeah. You said it well, much better than I did.
And
give my guy a GOAT here.
Give someone a
humble, hungry, and smart.
Humble, hungry, and smart.
Really,
I like that.
Really goes real well with that message too. So, and thank you. You've been a great mentor to me and Scott, and having you on is very special. So we appreciate you taking time. You're a really busy dude.
Oh, I appreciate it.
But a super cool guy we love hanging out with. So thank you so much.
Buying apps tonight, Billy?
Buying apps.
We're buying him dinner, I think.
Whoa. Limited budget over here. No, it's great.
We're going to get chicken on the nachos. Just for you guys.
Chicken on the nachos. So listen, have a great rest of your weekend, and thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you later.
Jason, you're a true GOAT. Thank you.
Thanks, fellas.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of The Goat's Gravy. We've shared some awesome insights and strategies aimed at enhancing your journey in sales. And the conversation does not have to stop here. So be sure to follow us on social media at The Goat's Gravy and explore more at thegoatsgravy.com. Your journey towards sales mastery is ongoing, and we're here to support you at every step. So thank you for tuning in today. Stay curious, stay driven, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.